Alright, hello everyone and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be doing the test runs for Genshin Impact version 3.5 Phase 2. So before I go into test runs, I wanted to give you a bit of a story, kind of a cautionary one of sorts. And this goes back to my playthrough in version 2.4. So in 2.3, I'd finished by pulling Arataki Ito from the character banners. I believe that was his debut banner. And so the Phase 1 banners were Shenhe and Zhao. Uh, Zhao was never a character that I was particularly interested in as far as a playable character. Shenhe was a character that people were interested in initially, and then when she was released, people were kind of 50-50 on it. So, but I was looking ahead to Phase 2, where Phase 2 was Zhongli and Ganyu. And while I could have gone for either one at the time, I was kind of looking at Zhongli being the shield master that everyone kept telling me he was. So the strategy was supposed to be to just save up my primos in Phase 1 and then go into Phase 2 and do the best I could to get Zhongli. Keep in mind that I do not have a guarantee at this point because I got Arataki Ito in 2.3. So Phase 1 began, and I had this interesting idea. It's an idea that probably occurs to all of us at any given point. Sometimes we act on it, sometimes we do the right thing and don't, and that is building pity. Building pity basically means that you decide
Let the show begin.
to just pull on the character banners just so that you can
Fire
get
incarnate.
4-star characters right now, and then you're going to build up your up to your next 90 um, as you're going along. So that was how it was supposed to work. And lo and behold, instead of building pity, I got quite a few. I got quite a few in, and then all of a sudden, um, I actually pulled Shenhe by complete accident, and now and now my strategy is broken because once I pulled Shenhe, that's not a 50-50 loss. So that means all that pity that I built up went right back to zero. And well, what? Long story short, I stopped what I was doing, waited until Phase 2, then did everything I could to try to pull Zhongli, and as luck would have it, or as luck wouldn't have it, I did not get back up to pulling another 5-star during that banner. So so in 2.4, my 5-star that I have to show for that one was Shenhe, and it was a bit of a learning experience for me. I kind of learned not to build pity from that.
I'll protect
Um,
us.
I was kind of a little gun shy going
Manifest.
into to the
Keep your
next version.
manifesting.
So I ended up passing on Yai Miko because I could see that Raiden Shogun was coming up on the second half of the banner,
Obey.
and I wanted to make sure that I got her instead of trying to build pity or something stupid like that. But it turned out after that, I actually did get Raiden Shogun, so it all worked out. So what happened with Shenhe was is that I got a bit uh, That's the word I'm thinking of. I wanted to make sure that I was actually using Shenhe for something. Um, Even though she was kind of the same as far as type of character as Rosaria, who I already had. Um, so I buckled down. I leveled her up to 90, got her talents up quite a bit, and then just tried to do the best I could to come up with something that should work. I did try Noblesse as an artifact set initially, but what I found worked pretty good for me is the team that you're seeing right here, which is I have a flex spot on top. I have Shenhe, Rosaria, and Barbara. And what this team does, as you've probably noticed, is Barbara provides the hydro um, element, and then Rosaria and Shenhe, when they do their cryo attacks, which are their elemental skills and bursts, they can freeze enemies just by combining their cryo with Barbara's hydro. Now the slot where Kazuha's in is the flex slot that can be any number of ones. I usually just put it to whatever I think works best for for the for either whatever I'm up against. So I have been using Pyro, and when you bring this to Emblem of Severed Fate, Pyro also seems to work in a lot of other places where this gets used. So if you want to kind of take a look at what I have for Shenhe here, so the weapon I have for her is the Missive Wind Spear. This was an event weapon from not too long ago. It has roughly the same types of substats as her signature weapon. Granted, not as much, but it's still competitive with that. Her passive, we could argue that elemental mastery doesn't really help her that much, but it does increase her attack by 24%, and her attack is quite high. So I have it just a little bit over 2,800. Now, for me, this I would say would be non typical. I have her on the Blizzard Strayer 4 piece. That is because the way that I play her, if you saw from earlier while I was uh, telling my story, I have her and Rosaria as kind of co DPSs. So rather than think of one as a DPS and one as a support, think of them kind of like a tag team. So I put one of them out, put the fire off their skill, fire off their burst, tag the other one back in, do some normal attacks, and then keep it going. Now Barbara is not only providing the hydro, she can also heal the team as we're going along. So I did. There are some times I got into a little bit of a problem, but as she is fighting the hydro, she's also topping their HP back up. So this does tend to work pretty well. Like I said, usually Shinyan is where Kazuha is in that lineup, and this basically makes the top level of Emblem of Severed Fate pretty much automatic. It also works fairly well on some of the Abyss chambers as well. I have even I think I've used this or a variation of it in the vibro crystal event as well. So the if I remember correctly, and I did take a look at the test run, for the artifacts, I saw that their build for Shenhe was a two-piece Gladiator Finale and two-piece Shimenawa Reminiscence, which gives her two 18% boosts to attack, which I think is I think that does kind of work. That I think that definitely should work because her attack is going to be pretty high. The higher her attack is, the more she can do in her abilities. So um, I would say if you wanted to look at noblesse, you certainly could for her. No, four-piece noblesse is what I think most people recommend for her. Um, Now, of course, if you're going for noblesse, just make sure that nobody else on the same team is using it, or because the four-piece set does not stack. But I would say if you're building Shenhe, I'd say first decide whether noblesse is right for you. If you're trying to do something crazy like what I'm doing, four-piece Blizzard Strayer will work just fine. The double attack would work as well if you want her to be pure support without noblesse. So
My pole arm doesn't distinguish friend from foe, and there is clearly a
and
limit to the red rope's power. That's why I loathe crowded areas.
so hopefully that worked out well for everyone. Um, so I'm going to move right over to Mika, and we're going to go ahead and start his trial run next. Um, and again, I've already done Shenhe. I wanted to kind of give her more of an open world demonstration rather than trying to use the builds that the game uses for her, which is nowhere close to what I do. So, um, okay, so Mika wasn't quite what I expected. I wasn't sure what I expected from him. But let's take a quick look at his talents. We're gonna just go straight there. Um, the normal talents. The only thing to think about as far as that is his 5 attack combo because after after the fifth one, wait, okay, somewhere in there he uses his crossbow. Let's see if I can spot it. Okay, so it does show up. Um, I don't know how effective that's going to be, but it's pretty much kind of a normal attack. So it's on his fourth one, right? Let's try that one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the crossbow's on his fourth normal attack. Okay, good to know. Aside from that, I really didn't have much. I usually don't have much to say about the normal attack, so it is otherwise just a regular attack. So, for Starfrost's Swirl, Mika uses his crossbow to attack, granting all nearby characters in your party Soul Wind. And when characters in the Soul Wind state are on the field, their attack speed will be increased and will take effect in different ways if tapped or held. If it's tapped, fires an arrow that can pierce through opponents, dealing cryo damage to enemies it comes in contact with. If you hold it, it goes into an aiming mode, locking onto an opponent and firing a flare at them, dealing cryo damage. When the flare hits, it will rise before exploding, launching Rhyme Star shards into a maximum of 3 other opponents, dealing cryo damage. And if you look at the skill attributes, you can see all of the skilling for that. And then we go to Skyfeather's Song, which I thought was interesting. So it derives the ability to spur teammates on for. Let's skip that part. Regenerating HP for all nearby party members. This healing is based on Mika's maximum HP and will grant them Eagle Plume state. And when they have Eagle Plume state, when normal attack hits an opponent, whether it's whoever it is, not necessarily him, Mika will help them regenerate HP based on his maximum HP. Characters affected this way can only regenerate HP in this way once per short interval of time. So, so yeah, it the way that it works is that you can see that the healing on cast is scales off his maximum HP, and then the eagle plume healing scales on his HP as well. I'm guessing the reason why they say per short interval of time is because maybe the healing interval changes as you level it up. At level 8, you can see it's 2.5 seconds, which is a pretty good interval, I suppose. Um, I wasn't sure what to think. I'm not sure what to think about this since we also have Diana on the same banner, and she is also a cryo healer. The big difference that I see here is Mika is a cryo healer who also buffs attack speed and apparently also buffs physical damage when you have this first passive talent. I think we get this fairly early. Um, and then, whereas Diona is a healer who also provides a pretty good shield. And we'll talk about Diona a little bit later. Um, I wasn't quite sure what to make of this. Um, and then demarcation displays the location of resources unique to Mondstadt. So that's good for looking for things on the map if you don't want to use the interactive map that Hoyoverse gives us. So, haven't looked. I do think I've seen what they have his weapon as. The Favonius Lance, I think, is kind of the obvious choice. Certainly, anything ER would work pretty well for him. So there's a lot of other options, but he's not. I don't think that he's a DPS, so I wouldn't go into anything that boosts his attack as the secondary. Certainly doesn't need elemental mastery. Um, you could go for the 3-star tassel that gives him HP. I think that would be okay, but I agree the Favonius Lance is probably the right way to go. Just keep in mind that if you go with the Favonius Lance, that whatever artifact set you go with, you need to go with a crit rate circlet so that he has enough crit rate to be able to land attacks regularly. I have the Favonius Lance on Yunjin. I'd use the same method, works great. So, what do I think is going to be his artifact set? Um, I mean, it would seem that 2-piece tenacity would probably be the obvious thing to do. Well, let me see what his. I didn't look to see what his how much energy his burst cost. 70. Not 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 immediately in the area where I would immediately want to put him on energy recharge, but it's close. So you could go for a 2-piece tenacity, 2-piece emblem. Um, I think based on everything I read, I might even go for a 2-piece tenacity, 2-piece blizzard strayer, because a lot of what his skills and burst do is that they go based on his cryo damage. But I don't think that I think that's probably not the way to go. I bet it's going to be. I think tenacity emblem might be where I would go for. But I think if I was to take a guess, I'm probably gonna put noblesse on it. Color me surprised. That is exactly what I would have picked. Tenacity and emblem, because you get a 20% boost to your HP, 20% boost to your ER. That's exactly what I would do. But I'm probably and I'm probably the only person who agrees with this because you never see a lot of the people who make the video guides for the artifact sets. You almost never see them pick a two pair. They always go for a four-piece set. So if I had to go strictly for a four-piece set, I think I would go with tenacity. Um, Slightly over emblem. I I think a lot of people try to go for noblesse. I think other people would use noblesse more effectively. Let's see if someone else in this level has noblesse. Diona has Maiden Beloved. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Fischl has Gladiator Finale and Thundering Fury. And that kind of makes a little bit of sense. And Razor has four-piece Gladiator. Okay. Okay, so nobody has noblesse. I think if nobody on on his team has noblesse, I think that would be the reason to do it. But I like this. I like this boost better. Um, Now I can't look at all the individual components of this, but just to kind of give you a quick look of what I might think about. Keeping in mind he's got the Favonius Lance. I would want this circlet, whatever it happens to be a crit rate circlet, so I get some extra um, crit rate power from it, and I'm not chasing that through all the other stats. I think I would probably. Oh, no, back over there. I think that for the Sands and for the Goblet, I would probably just go for HP on both and get his healing factor up as high as I possibly can. But if I think I don't need him as much for healing, then I might be tempted to keep going to constellations today for whatever reason. I think I would be tempted to make this a cryo damage goblet if I wanted to give him a little bit more attack power. But I don't think he needs it. I think having the sands and the goblet be HP, particularly since I would be going for crit rate for the circlet in this build. If I've got something else, then I might go for if I was going for an HP circlet, I'd probably go for an ER Sands rather than go for a cryo damage goblet. And then of course these just give him whatever stats he needs. That's kind of roughly what I would do for this. All right. So let's see how this plays out. So they're giving me Fischl and Razor. So those are two characters that could do a lot of physical attacks.
Final warning.
Okay. As I was guessing, it doesn't really hit too hard. But based on what I read, I wouldn't have expected that.
Fire.
6, 5. He's got his burst ready. Let's see if I can freeze a bunch of them all together.
Engaging.
By royal decree.
And switch to Fischl. Playing Fischl as if she has the rust bone. She probably doesn't have it. She has stringless. Okay. All right. So that. Okay. So I probably should try to do what the test run's trying to get me to do. I don't know. Probably not do. Something tells me I'm not doing it right. Maybe. Certainly. Well, no. I can see the effect.
I taste blood.
It's just not. Probably should have something up first.
Providing cover fire. Let's keep going, team.
As you wish, mein Fräulein.
Hmm. So this is probably a less physical um, build for official than what I have.
Leave the
I,
wounded to
I
me.
I'm, okay, we're this is interesting, but I don't really feel like it's giving me a. I don't think the physical damage bonus was that high, and it doesn't feel like it. Feels like I'm getting a little bit of a boost, maybe, but I'm not really noticing it to physical damage. Um, okay, I wasn't sure what I was expecting of him, but I think the tough thing, I guess, for me is I'm thinking if I manage to pull him, and I will be doing a lot of wishing. I'm not gonna wish specifically for Mika. Going to be looking to add more constellations to Shenhe to boost that cryo tag team. Now, theoretically, I probably should be pulling for Ayaka because I don't have her yet, but I am confident that this could be famous last words here. I'm confident I'm going to have another choice, another chance on Ayaka. But as far as the how I might use Mika, well, the two characters on my team, they're both on this lineup, that have the highest physical damage are these two right here. Fischl has a Pale Flame 4 piece, which gives her a 25% boost. Xinyan has a 2-piece Pale Flame and a 2-piece Bloodstained, which gives her a 50% bonus. But Xinyan also has, but they both have their elemental goblets. Fischl has an electro goblet. Xinyan has a pyro damage goblet. We could debate whether that's correct or not, whether that's optimal or not, but it would seem like if I was going to put Mika somewhere, it would have to be on a team like this where he would replace one of these two. But the question is who? If you've seen a lot of my playthroughs, you know it's probably not going to be this one. As for Barbara, I could see him filling the same slot that Barbara has. He would give a better not a better, he'd give a different uh, boost than Barbara. The tricky thing with Barbara is her attack power is extremely low, but she has throwing tails of dragon slayers where when she comes in, tags in, when she comes out, she can boost the attack of one of these three, which is huge. And I use that quite a lot. You'll see, particularly with Fischl, you'll see me put Barbara in, switch to Fischl, and then just grind some enemies down with Fischl, then switch to Xinyan, who doesn't really need the boost as much because she can boost her attack from her own defense. Um,
Mind be
I don't
purged,
really see that
world
I
be
would.
saved.
I don't really see a lot of times that I would switch Barbara out. The only reason I might is if I knew there was going to be a lot of cryo in the same level. Uh, Barbara's healing is really good, but it adds hydro status to everything, which can get you frozen if you're up against cryo opponents. So overall, I would say Mika's interesting. I'm not really sure that I'm not really sure that he's the right one for me. So, but we'll see what happens when I pull on my Twitch stream a little bit later. So, but So anyway, if you're if that was what you came for, and bye. But well, let's go ahead and do the other ones just for the sake uh, of getting everything done. So this was a tough decision, and if you've seen a lot of my videos, heard me talking on Twitch, you know that I've spent there's a lot of soul searching between the special program announcement for 3.5 and now to determine whether I want constellations for Shenhe or whether I want to unlock Ayaka. Um, and you know, it's so let's go ahead and take a look at her talents because apparently I've forgotten what I was going to try to do. Um, okay, normal. I don't see anything that we really need to talk about there. Her skill summons blooming ice to launch nearby opponents, dealing AoE cryo damage. And there's so so we're seeing it at level 8 right here. And then her burst consumes stamina and cloaks herself in a frozen fog. So that's her skill that allows her to move around the board. And in that form, she moves swiftly upon water. When she reappears, the following effect occurs. Ayaka unleashes frigid enemy to apply cryo on nearby opponents. Coldness condenses around Ayaka's blade, infusing her attacks with cryo for a brief period. This does drain a little stamina, and I swear there was a cooldown for this, but maybe I'm not. No, I guess this is just an okay. It's an alternate sprint. Never mind. So her actual burst is this one: storm of whirling icy winds that slashes repeatedly at every enemy it touches, dealing cryo damage. Snowstorm explodes after its duration ends, also doing AoE cryo damage. And it lasts for 5 seconds. Its cooldown is 20, and it's a pretty expensive one because her energy cost is 80. So, building her kit, you're really going to need to look at ER as you go along. These passes probably just fine. Not really going to look too much into that right now. And then when Ayaka crafts weapon ascension materials, she can double the product 10% of the time. I don't really have a hard. For me, it's not a big deal. Finding weapon ascension materials, so I don't really know if I'm going to miss having that passive. But that's just me. So her weapon is the Mist Splitter Reforged. It's a high crit damage weapon. Passive works well with her skill or with her talents. This uh, sword is pretty versatile. A lot of sword users could make use of the sword. Um, it's always good having a weapon that has crit damage or crit rate, especially if it's a character that's going to be one of your one or your only main damage dealer. Um, so yeah, you could get this weapon and give it to somebody else if you don't have Ayaka. My concern about that, and this is speaking from someone who does do the weapon banner from time to time and has had a lot of good luck with it. Keep in mind that you are not only looking at the Mistbearer Reforged, you're looking at Calamity Queller for um, Shenhe, and Calamity Queller is good for Shenhe. Doesn't really come up with on the top of anyone else's charts and pole arms. So if you go for Mistbearer Reforged, beware that you might have to eat a Calamity Queller to get there. So I would only go for the weapon if you have Shenhe on your team and you're willing to give Shenhe the Calamity Queller on the way to this weapon. So I would imagine that Ayaka has to have the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. I figured as much. Um, this would be kind of a semi-standard DPS build, whatever you have here. Um, the tricky thing about the Blizzard Strayer set, if you look at the 4-piece set, she will get 20% crit rate on any opponent affected by cryo, and she'll get an additional 20% if they're frozen. So if she is a solo DPS, solo cryo DPS, you don't have to go as high with your crit rate as you normally would, as long as she is going to be applying cryo frequently. You can just use that 4-piece set to assume that you're getting that you've got a little bit of crit rate to go to spread around. So if she's got her weapon, then I would say only if she's got her weapon would I even consider going for a crit rate circlet. Otherwise, this circlet would almost always be a crit damage one, even with the crit damage she's getting from her weapon. The goblet, I think, would be a crit damage goblet, or not a crit damage, cryo damage goblet. I don't see why you would do anything else. And for the sands, I would give some consideration to an ER sands, if only because she's got a very high energy requirement. So she will need either a lot of energy recharge on her own, or you will need to run her with another cryo unit, maybe Shenhe, maybe Mika, maybe Diona, or maybe Rosaria. There's a lot of options, but I would otherwise just look at this the same way you would look at any other DPS. Okay, so let's see who else we've got. Got Barbara again. Got her Prototype Amber. Prototype Amber is a pretty good weapon for her. A lot of people swear by the throwing tails, as do I, but I would recommend that you keep a Prototype Amber on your in your sideboard at all times with Barbara. And the reason is that if you take Barbara into a co-op level, throwing tails will not really function in a co-op environment. So just keep Prototype Amber ready to go if you're going to take her into a co-op level. That way you're going to do that way you're doing something that's actually going to help your team and even compared to throwing tails, this will have a higher HP, so you're actually doing more healing as well. Then she's got Maiden Beloved. Overall, when it comes to Barbara, Maiden Beloved is probably her best set. I'm using Ocean Hued Clam. I think that it's a comparable set. It does a little bit of attack. That's roughly the same healing. I switched from one to the other. Didn't see that much of a difference. So I would say she should be using one or the other. I don't think you should be using anything else other than one of those two. So, and we've seen her Noblesse and Crimson Witch of Flames. For Shangling, I would definitely go for the 4-piece emblem. If you want to do something crazy, you could put her on 4-piece Crimson Witch of Flames. Just make sure you're watching that ER requirement. Dragonsbane's pretty good for her. I think I have her on the catch right now. Okay. But we're looking at Ayaka right now. So you can see I feel like this is a little bit easier to control compared to I remember I was trying out Yelan even recently, and I always have trouble with hers. Ayaka's, for whatever reason, feels a lot smoother. I feel like I can control it more. I even feel like I control this better than Sayu. I do have Sayu on my team. I don't remember where she is as far as her constellations. All right, let's get stuff done.
Dance.
So again, they're if you remember my freeze team, they have the same idea where they are putting Barbara on the same team as Ayaka. You can see that Ayaka, when she provides cryo, if the melodic loop is in play from Barbara, well, the cryo and hydro hit together and
I'll
cause a
protect
freeze.
us.
Watch right here. So
Whirling snow.
you can see it's a little bit harder to do that with elemental enemies like the slimes. So they're kind of not giving
My
the
apologies.
best way to the
Embrace
best
the ice.
way to show that off. But
Take flight.
okay, ah, yeah, I am conflicted with that because I know I would do really well with Ayaka on my team. Um, but going for Constellation for Shenhe is just a little too tempting for me right now. And Ayaka is a very popular character. I would have no doubt in my mind that I will see an Ayaka rerun before I see the next Shenhe rerun. I would be shocked if I see a Shenhe rerun in 2023. We will definitely get a Shenhe rerun in 2024. We might get an Ayaka rerun in 2023. But if we do, I would imagine it would be very late. Okay, so now let's move on to Sucrose. So I have been kind of going for a while. I want to kind of keep this a little bit brief, although I probably um, forsaken a brief stream as soon as I decided to start telling a story. Um, but Sucrose, I think this is a pretty easy build. This is an easy build to imagine, so there's going to be a lot less talking. Okay, let's start with the normal attack. The normal attack is a normal attack. Nothing to worry about there. Elemental skill creates a small wind spirit that pulls opponents and objects toward its location, launches opponents within its AoE, and does animo damage. So it pulls enemies in and then blasts them out. Then her skill, or burst rather, Sucrose hurls an unstable concoction that creates a large wind spirit. While it persists, a large wind spirit will continuously pull in surrounding opponents and objects, launch nearby opponents, and deal animo damage. So it kind of does the same thing, except this is a much bigger one. Um, and you can see it's a lot pulling enemies in and then blowing them up. So it doesn't. So it does kind of group them a little bit, but only temporarily, I guess. So when Sucrose triggers a swirl reaction, all characters in the party with the matching element, excluding Sucrose, have their elemental mastery increased by 50 for 8 seconds. And then when her skill or burst hits an opponent, increases all party members, excluding Sucrose, elemental mastery by an amount equal to 20% of her elemental mastery for 8 seconds. And then when she crafts character and weapon enhancement materials, she has a 10% chance to double the product. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much it. When you're building Sucrose, there's pretty much only one artifact set that I would expect to see, and that is 4-piece Viridescent Venerer. Yeah, even the game wasn't gonna get that wrong. Wasn't gonna get that wrong. And I think I think it's just easy. All you have to do, Sands, Goblet, Circlet, have to be elemental mastery. Just do that, and then just try to get as much elemental mastery as you can on these two. Maybe go for a little bit of maybe go for some ER. Definitely don't sleep on attack too much. You having a lot of having a lot of EM is great, but if your attack is lousy, it won't do as much damage. As far as her weapon, I would say any weapon that has EM would be what I would do. Let's see what they have. Sacrificial fragments. So yes, an EM weapon. Um, yeah, I would say I wouldn't consider anything that doesn't give you EM on this. To be honest, there may be some other support type catalysts. There are a lot of DPS catalysts. I would worry about none of them. If it doesn't have elemental mastery, it doesn't go on sequence. All right, let's do this. So we've got Lisa and Kai in the lineup. We're not going to endlessly debate them right now. So I've kind of used up a lot of time already. So you can see that was the burst right there. But it actually does kind of pull them in. And okay. I'm just kind of running around letting it build up again. Okay. So it's kind of the same no matter whether it's a press or a hold, which I would expect because it didn't tell me otherwise. Let's get rid of this group because they're kind of low on hit points right now. So I have going into this banner, I have Sucrose at C0, which I was surprised when I checked it. I thought for sure I had her at least at C1, but I haven't really built her, so that's probably why I haven't used. So, all right, let's see the burst. There you go. That's why you need all that. That's part of why you need all that elemental mastery. Although I could just make it pretty easy and just basically say if you have um, an animo character who is going to do any level of swirl, just go for a high elemental mastery 4-piece viridescent. It's almost automatic. If you have an animo character that's not going to be doing swirl, that's when you decide to do other interesting things. Yeah. I mean, this works quite well. I guess the only reason I haven't been using her is just because I just don't have the right. I don't have enough. Just don't have the right
You're in for a little
lineup
shock.
for it, or rather, I just don't have the right constellations for it. But yeah, you just use her the same way you would any other Animo swirl. Just put her on the team with 3 different swirlable elements, and you're good to go. So once again, with Sucrose, my recommendation: 4-piece viridescent, any elemental mastery weapon. Doesn't have to be sacrificial fragments. There are a few others that work just as well. Um, I would say make sure that you're keeping an eye on her attack as you're building your set, but don't go crazy. You're gonna spend a lot of time just getting those elemental mastery, sans goblet and circlet. That probably once you're done with that, you probably won't. You'll probably want to move on to something else. All right, that leaves Diona, and I had some thoughts on Diona right now. Oops, Shenha. I will get out of this. Get back to Diona, but as while we're waiting to do that, um, one of my thoughts on Diona right now, I have her at C4, but I haven't built her yet. Um, I could end up getting a lot of. I could end up getting one or more Mika uh, pulls on this banner while I'm trying to get Shenhe. Um, but in my mind, it's like since she's at C4 right now, he's got a pretty good chance of getting all the way to C6. Um, would I want the healing and the shield, or would I want a healing and physical attack? I think I would probably. I mean, the tricky thing is that even though her shield is really good, and no question it is, you're going to see this in the trial run, I'm sure, as will I. Um, I also have two really good shielders already in Zhongli and Noel. I tend, this is probably atypical again. I tend to use Noel far more than I use Zhongli. But there's one thing that's the same for both Zhongli and Noel, and that is they're both Geo. So with Fiona, we're kind of getting a chance at getting another shielder who is not Geo. So let's take a look at her talents and everything. We'll try to keep this a little bit brief. Um, so her talent, again, she's a bow user, so a lot of this is exactly what you'd expect from a bow user for a normal attack. The skill Icy Paws fires an icy paw that deals crowd damage to opponents and forms a shield on it. Shield's damage absorption scales based on her maximum HP, and its duration scales off the number of icy paws that hit the target. So pressing it rapidly fires 2, holding it dashes back quickly before firing 5. Shield created by a hold attack will gain a 75% damage absorption bonus. Shield has a 250% damage absorption bonus and will cause your active character to become affected by cryo at the point of formation for a short duration. Let's see if they tell us what that short duration is. I don't think it does. Or the duration is. No, that's not what that. Okay, so let's. So that's her skill. Her burst tosses out a special cold brew that deals AoE crowd damage bonus and creates a drunken mist in an AoE. And that drunken mist deals continuous crowd damage to opponents within, and it continuously regenerates the HP of characters within. So I would say that comparing the two healers, just on the healing, I think that with Mika, you're probably going to have an easier time healing than with Diona's. Um, but with Diona, you've got HP regeneration that scales off her HP, and you've got shield that scales off her HP. So we're definitely looking at, with Diona, a character where HP is going to be critical. So characters shielded by Icy Paws have their movement speed increased by 10%. Okay, so I guess both of them do that. And their stamina consumption is decreased by 10%. I must have missed that before. Stamina consumption decreasing by 10% could be really key, depending on who else you have in your party. I'm thinking in particular Yanfei, because I use her a lot, and she uses every last bit of my stamina consumption when she's on the field. Opponents who enter the AoE of signature mix, which is the burst, have 10% decreased. Opponents have 10% decreased attack for seconds. Complimentary bar food when a perfect cooking is achieved on the dish with restorative effects. This is worthless because you'll get Barbara for free, and she has the exact same thing. So I don't know why you wouldn't have to worry about that after that. So, all right. So, weapons. I would go with an ER weapon. Let's see what they have. Sacrificial bow. So they're in the same spot that I'm in. Certainly, you could go for Favonius as well, but any energy recharge, I think. Let me remind myself what her burst. Her burst is 80. So yeah, you definitely need to be watching her energy recharge, along with her HP. So yeah, sacrificial bow. You also got the Favonius bow. You can work with. Uh I go for which one would I go with? Does her skill even? Okay, it does. Not a lot, but it does. Her skill does do some damage. So yeah, I could see the sacrificial bow. I could also see the Favonius bow. I think I would lean between the two. I'd kind of lean towards the sacrificial myself because you get a good ER and you're not chasing a passive that's going to make you chase crit rate. So this will give you a chance to immediately cast her skill again, which probably, well, I mean, you wouldn't do it immediately afterwards, but if that, well, how much of a delta is there between the when the shield? So the shield lasts for 15 seconds if he held it down. Got a maximum shield. Okay, so yeah, I would say that there's definitely something for this. I think if I just had the choice between the two, I think I'd definitely go with the sacrificial bow. I think the Favonius bow will work better with other characters. You probably have both. Um, so I would, if, but yeah, I would definitely, I wouldn't consider any bow that doesn't have an energy recharge stat. Maybe some that have an HP stat. They're not coming to me right now, but I would definitely go with ER. Okay, so they went with the healing set for her, which I think I agree. Um, if you're bringing her in as a healer, then Maiden Beloved or the Clam, I consider them equal, so I would say go for that. That's perfectly good. I if I was going to go for something a little bit more exotic, maybe the 4-piece tenacity, maybe a 2-piece tenacity and emblem if I was worried about her ER. Um, but I would probably run her alongside another cryo. That would keep her energy needs down. Plus, I would probably want to uh, hold off using her burst all the time. I would probably try to. I wouldn't try to do that all the time. I'd try to leave her filled up so that she's refilling whoever my other character is. I certainly would either do what I'm doing with Rosara and Shenha, where I'm kind of going with the tag team uh, DPS, which I don't think many people are going to try to do. Most likely, you're going to have a character that you're going to use as a DPS along with her. Um, yeah, no, I think that would be the better way to go. I don't think that she works as well as a DPS. That crazy idea that I have. So, as far as the individual pieces, um, I would say probably the sands, the goblet, and the circlet. Probably sands and goblet for sure. You'd be looking at HP. With the circlet, you could go for HP or you could go for healing effective or healing bonus. That's probably going to work well if this is where you're going. Um, you might consider an ER Sans, but just just make sure that she's doing enough healing. Otherwise, yeah. And yeah, if you've got the Favonius weapon, then your circlet will need to be crit. Okay. Then Kaya's got the Favonius sword and 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. Fine. It's kind of what I have anyway. Lisa has the Witsith, which is a crit damage weapon, and she's got 4-piece Sundering Fury. That kind of makes sense too. So, okay, let's get this done. So, let's see if I can hit with all 5. I think I did. Oops. Okay. You can see that was just a press right there. But it does last quite a bit. Okay. And of course, it switches from, just like most shields, you can get him on whoever you want.
You're in for a little shock.
I definitely would. I don't do a lot of charged shot bow users.
Come a little closer.
Probably should do it more often. So.
Can't handle your drink.
Okay, so there's the. Okay, so I'm getting some good super conduct out of this.
Come a little.
So that's pretty good.
You're in for a little shock. Come a little closer.
Dodge this. Don't get frostbite.
You're in for a little shock.
You don't have a Hydro in this team. That would have taken the shield down a little bit easier.
You're in for a little shock.
Cool it.
Surrender may be gentle.
Well, that'll do it. They sit better. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, that's all 5 characters, one way or the other. So what I'm going to do and I have a stream that's going to be happening soon. I am going to probably pull for I'm going to be pulling for Shenhe, and then I will pull. I can get her. I can get 2 shots at her, and hopefully I'll get her to C2. I know I will at least get her to C1. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this stream or video. If you did, please give a like and consider subscribing to this channel and following me on Twitch. I will see you in the next video. Later.